Hello there, friends and neighbors out in YouTube land. This video is probably a little bit apropos, but I still feel that it's relevant to what's going on in society today. So I just want to talk for a minute. Everyone by now is probably, and if you haven't, you might be living under a rock, so you might not want to. You might want to get out from under that rock. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is this fella who's that white supremacist who got clocked in the face, right? And everybody's been making comments about it, and most of the comments are, "Yay, Nazi got punched, he got his," right? So I'm gonna make a little video about it, sort of giving my opinion, like people are wont to do, right? So here we go, right? I'll start by saying everybody knows that Nazis are bad. I'm no different, right? Racism is bad. Fascism is bad. Violent suppression of people based on their beliefs or color or national origin is all bad, right? Again, I'm no different in my estimation of these things than any rational person, right? Nazis, white supremacists are despicable and deplorable in their ideology, which is, honestly morally decrepit and at the same time wholesale un-American. Luckily for us, they are a fringe movement at best, with a tiny voice and a minuscule amount of influence, despite what the media may suggest, right? What I suggest is, we should laugh at them, point at them, point out how silly they are and their tiny minds and their even smaller efficacy. So, I just want to briefly discuss a couple points in relation to this lad who was punched on TV while being interviewed. Okay? One, and this is just sort of a practical thing, sucker punching people is cowardly. Okay? If you so strongly oppose someone that you feel the need for a forceful intervention and that intervention is unavoidable, at least have the cojones and the sort of basic, like, I was gonna say be a man, but it doesn't really, male or female, it doesn't really matter. Um, have the decency at least to challenge them, square up to them one on one, right? Because imagine yourself in the reverse position, and I think that we could really benefit from this as a society in a whole. Look at the other side of the coin in pretty much every respect, um, and that'll show you whether or not the rationale that you're using is one that's useful or valid, right? So you're at a rally against white supremacy, right? Everybody can get behind that. You're speaking out against neo-Nazism, racism, and a random Nazi thug sneaks up out of nowhere and clocks you in the face and then runs away. What would your reaction be to that? Likely that he or she is a coward, right? Because that's what it is. A little sneak attack. That's weak. That's wimpy. There's no nobility in that, you know? Unfortunately, your ideology and the ideology of your opposition in this particular instance is irrelevant. It makes no difference. And basically, it just makes you look like a coward, right? I know lots of people are saying, well, he's a Nazi. He had it coming and this and that. You know, that is really, that's notwithstanding, because what you did is in many respects the same as what you think a Nazi would do. All right. So anyway, moving on to the next point, the legality of it, sort of, right? Like punching people in an unprovoked manner is illegal, aggressive, and even potentially an oppressive act. Like think about it this way. I'll say, okay, so if this Nazi was proving an imminent threat to you or your children or your spouse or your family, then absolutely you have the right to defend yourself. And it would be even maybe fun since it was against a Nazi, right? Okay. However, premeditated violence against anyone is not only against the law in any free society, but it sets a potentially dangerous precedent, right? The result of which is that now anytime we strongly disagree with someone or their ideology or anything about them, physical force is justifiable. That is a slippery, slippery slope, people. Um, if physical force is a justifiable manifestation of our disagreement or opposition, I mean, that's probably not the dictionary definition of oppression, but pretty darn close to it, right? So, unfortunately, in America, we do have that thing called the First Amendment, and it's difficult, but it means that people with some pretty stupid views still have the right to express those views, right? As long as it's not a direct, violent threat, and they're saying, "I'm about to kill you now," right? That's a different set of circumstances. Um, so the last point is that, and it's similar to the previous point, is that unfortunately punching a Nazi is hypocritical, and I would argue counterproductive as well. I mean, do you know which group of people were infamously renowned for violent suppression and attacks against people with differing ideologies? Nazis were. I mean, Jesus. To engage in this type of behavior is the pinnacle of ironic hypocrisy, and it will only serve to discredit the people engaging in this behavior and any movement to which that person may subscribe, right? Um, a lot of people offer the argument that one person in a movement says one thing, it doesn't represent the whole movement. To a point that's accurate, yes. But if there is a movement, movements need one thing: they need leadership and they need discipline. Maybe a couple things, but they need leadership within that movement and discipline within that movement. Um, if you don't denounce actions which don't fit the narrative of your movement, then your movement is going to lose momentum, lose steam, and lose credibility. So if your movement doesn't have leadership and it doesn't have discipline and communication within the movement, your movement's not going to be very successful. And you can look for pretty much any a movement that's been successful in the past, and you'll see that movements are organized. They communicate. They know who's doing what within the movement, and when something counteracts the tenets of the movement, they nip it in the bud pretty quickly, right? So, have I ever thought about punching a Nazi? Of course. They're rotten bastards, and on a karmic level, they probably deserve it. But I am not an instrument of karma, as much as I would like to think that I am. We live in a civil society that has laws and rights, and unfortunately, living in a free society can prove challenging, especially one that's as diverse as ours in America. Diversity does not just mean celebrating all the good things. I wish it did. And a lot of people think that it does, but diversity basically is an inclusive term, right? Of course, we have laws that govern against people, committing violent acts against each other, and things like that, and racist acts. But diversity means that the guy down the street who thinks black people are terrible, unfortunately, is able to express his views, and the guy next door to you who doesn't like women is able to express his views as long as he doesn't act on those views, right? That's part of diversity. It's the ugly part, but it is a necessary part. If diversity, you have to include everyone, and I think people are kind of forgetting that these days, right? So it's challenging living in a free society, right? However, the rights, the convictions, the laws, the tenets which protect us also protect these other people, these jokers, right? I know it's hard to stomach, but if you wish not to be a hypocrite, if you wish not to be counterproductive to your beliefs, if you really truly want to work for peace and support the diversity of America and the Constitution of America, then you'll have to forego the instant gratification and the internet plaudits of Nazi punching. All right? It's just going to set a bad precedent for everybody, and it's not going to get you anything other than some YouTube views. Okay? I know this may be an unpopular stance, but I think it's the rational stance. I think it's the right stance. So let's not go punching people just because they're Nazis. All right, that's what Nazis would do. Enough for today. See you next time.